Hey folks, Tony Mo here, and I'm really excited to sit down and talk with you today about Dirt 5. Codemasters was kind enough to send me over an early copy of the game. I've been playing it pretty much nonstop all week, really been squeaking in a race here or two whenever I get the chance on top of that, and honestly that's the first really positive thing I have to say about Dirt 5, especially considering how busy a lot of you are right now juggling kids, potentially being at home for school, maybe you're even homeschooling on top of working from home or working out of home during all of this. I'm sure many of you crave something where you can sit down and just actually accomplish something in 10 minutes or less. And the majority of the races in Dirt 5 across all sorts of the different event types come in at well over under 10 minutes. Some of them 5 minutes or less, 4 to 5 minute range. So you could even sit down, play 1 or 2 races and actually make some real progress in your campaign. And I think that's honestly a great direction for Codemasters to have taken the overall pace, specifically of the game's campaign with these shorter race windows, because the driving feels tense, it feels fast, and there's such a huge variety, again, of race types and vehicle types and terrain types that, no, you don't want to spend too much time in just one vehicle on one terrain or one track. You want to get the full gambit. That's what the Dirt 5 campaign arcade experience is all about, and I think Codemasters has handled it exceptionally well. I'm just going to be really upfront with you about this. I have very little bad or negative or critical to say about Dirt 5. I think there's some weird stuff going on with the visual presentation of the game in the menus, but the game has it where it counts, and I think especially the terrain deformation and all of the weather effects and just in general the terrain and the way the terrain is designed and how it interacts with your vehicle, and even the vehicles themselves and the way they interact with weather and dirt and dust are absolutely stunning. Like, if you go ahead and pop into photo mode and take a look at these things when they're knee-deep in some mud with some water splashed up on them, or just layers and layers of dry dust and dirt caked onto them after a couple laps, it's incredible. And more importantly, it's reflected in the gameplay. All of the different terrain types and the handling that they offer make driving in this game just a true joy. It's just fun. It's not super difficult. It can be challenging at times, but it's not a sim racer. It's not Dirt Rally. It's going to take you back if you've played games like Rally Sport Challenge 2 and MotorStorm and the original Toka Race Driver series, and you can even throw things like Test Drive Eve of Destruction in there, or the old school Colin McRae rally stuff. It's got it where it counts. Gameplay. And it's not a bad-looking game at the end of the day at all. I've been seeing a lot of conversation going around like, oh, the game's ugly. And no, it's not trying to be the next Gran Turismo. It's not trying to be the next Forza Motorsport. It's an arcade racer that is focused on terrain, the vehicle interaction with the terrain, and giving you a huge variety of vehicles and locations to race on. And that's personally all I really want from an arcade racer. And then Codemasters goes and takes it up to 11. They might even go beyond 11 here. This game has 4-player split screen. You can do 4-player split screen career mode. Say what? Now, I know a lot of people, when they think about anything happening in a local sense these days, they're like, oh, that's a bad idea because, COVID and the pandemic and all of that. But you're kind of forgetting that there's people who are like trapped at home with loved ones, with their siblings, with their partners. Not necessarily trapped, but they're staying safe in their own confined spaces. And I really hope that there is a couple of siblings out there, some partners out there, some folks out there, just like my brother and I when we grew up, who are going to absolutely lose themselves in Dirt 5 split screen offerings. My brother and I put thousands of hours into Rally Sport Challenge 2, into passing the controller in games like Motorsport and Toka Race Driver. We loved racing games as kids. We would play one track for literally hundreds of hours to the point where we were just racing each other. And we would get so good at that track together that every single race would be down to the wire. It would just be a matter of like who makes that next mistake. We didn't need, online matchmaking and a bunch of random assholes to race against. We just had each other, and the racing was never closer. I really hope that there are people out there who are going to sit down and they're going to get to have a similar experience like the one that my brother and I had with Dirt 5, because it's such a incredibly fleshed out package that you could spend all day jumping across the different race types, the different bespoke race events and vehicles that go along with them, like the Formula trucks and the Pathfinder bouldering trucks. You've got everything from pre-runners to full-blown unlimited trophy trucks. You've got like the Hayabusa powered Formula carts. You've got classic rally racers, modern rally racers. It just doesn't stop. There's even straight up ice racing. There's even straight up sprint car racing. Like, Codemasters really did manage to throw a little bit of everything in there, and it's all represented really well in my opinion. Again, I think a big part of that, we come back to the game's handling. We come back to the core gameplay experience. The driving in here isn't sim focused, but it's still satisfying. It's still rewarding. And I think the team has done a really good job in pushing for a very accessible arcade experience. And they've done this in a couple ways. Number one, you've got your base difficulty options. You can go from easy to normal to hard, etc. You can also tweak numerous assists. You can turn off parts of the HUD. All the things you would kind of expect, right? But I think the thing that works best with the game's difficulty slider is the way they've handled vehicle ratings. So some event types are going to have one specific vehicle, and that's going to be it. For example, the Formula trucks, there's only one Formula truck, there's only one Pathfinder truck, there's only one sprint car if you're doing like the full-on actual sprint racing event. But for the other vehicles, you can actually purchase and upgrade, not necessarily a straight upgrade, but swap to different vehicles. So if I'm looking at something like Rally Raid, I'm going to see a variety of trucks and vehicles that I can choose from. And they're going to have 2 scores applied to them in a letter rating. One for performance and one for handling. It's going to range from like, C to B to A to S, if you will. If a vehicle has really good handling, that usually means it has lower performance. Doesn't mean it's bad, it just means that it's probably a little bit more down in the power, doesn't have as much acceleration or as much top speed, and therefore it's easier to drive. These aren't like hardcore indicators of some serious deep stats within the game system. This isn't trying to be like, hey, here's the engine output and the acceleration and the clutch flywheel speed, and if you want to tune your suspension, you can do that. There's none of that anymore. This isn't trying to be even somewhat of a sim racer. It's a full-on arcade racer. And so as a new player playing on something like easy or normal difficulty, you can just look at the vehicles and very quickly see, okay, this one has better handling. I struggle to drive the vehicles in a straight line in this game. I struggle to get around corners. I'm going to choose the one with better handling. And yeah, the performance is down a little bit. I can still win races. I'm on this normal or easy difficulty. That's fine. Now let's say you end up playing this game for 50 hours and you start to get really good at it and you're like, you know what? I want something faster. And so you kick up the difficulty, you go from easy to normal or normal to hard, and you pick up one of the S tier performance trucks. Now the handling is probably a lot worse, might even be down into a C, but you've gotten better at the game. You're ready to tackle something, and you might find yourself with a new learning curve to conquer. This thing's got some horsepower, you got to modulate your throttle a little bit more, but there you have it. You were able to fine-tune your difficulty experience just by choosing a different vehicle as you grew through those difficulty options. It's not a perfect solution, but I think it's one of the best ways I've seen a game handle difficulty, especially in the arcade racer space, without just going full-on Forza Motorsport or Forza Horizon, having like a billion different options for how the AI works and having drivatars and all this fancy shit. It means that driving against the AI can be a reasonably personally tuned experience. I will say, however, the AI can be some serious assholes sometimes, and Don't feel bad about trading paint with them, because trust me, they will put you into the corner like a bumper car whenever they see fit. It's a little frustrating at times, but just drive consciously and you can watch them drive into the wall instead. It's like playing with my brother when we were young, and he was learning how to play racing games and he would just intentionally corner me. Just go ahead and T-bone me. That's the AI sometimes in this game. You'll get used to it. It's really not as bad as I might be making it out to be, but again, it's something to consider. So all in all, I think Dirt really just understands the game that it was trying to be. And believe it or not, I think that's a really hard thing to do with arcade racers. I've spoken pretty extensively about how I feel Forza Horizon sort of evolved the arcade racer in a new direction, and no one has since been able to bring us an arcade-style racing experience that is anywhere near as fun or as accessible or as successful as what we saw back in the day with games like Rally Sport Challenge 2. And I think Dirt 5 is the first game since then to showcase that these sorts of contained arcade experiences can still be extremely successful, and more importantly, can offer something that you're not going to find if you go and play something like Forza Horizon. Horizon is amazing, it really is, but you've got a big open sandbox. Everything is built to exist on that sandbox. You don't have bespoke race types necessarily, at least not as bespoke as you get with something like the Pathfinder or Formula events here inside of Dirt. And because every track is something you load into, the team can do so much with weather conditions and applying different weather types to the same track. So you might drive on a dry, rocky mountain pass like the one you're seeing here, but maybe a few races later, you get to do that same track at night and it's covered in slush. Like, it's not, a foot of snow. It's not hard packed snow. There's been a good few inches of snowfall overnight, and now things are a little bit more sloppy, a little bit more slippery and slidey. And getting comfortable with those different terrains and those different weather conditions is a huge part of what makes driving in this so fucking fun. It is really addictive, in my opinion. I look forward to the next race in the next vehicle on the next terrain type and just seeing the sort of experience it's going to offer. And to go one better when we talk a little bit about accessibility and to kind of reference what I talked about at the very beginning of this video with being able to just pick this game up and play it, the thing I love the most about Dirt 5's campaign is that you don't have to get first place. This is a huge pet peeve of mine, especially in arcade racers, is that you'll get like 5th or 6th place in one race, and the game will pretty much stonewall you and be like, no, this is it. We put up a gate, there's a wall here. Unless you can get 3rd place, just fuck right off. Go back, do that race 100 more times. I personally like a racing experience where I can acknowledge that every now and then my character as a driver is going to falter. We're going to make a mistake, and we're not going to get podium. You can still make progress in Dirt 5 with those sorts of finishes. I'm not saying you can come in last place every single time. If that's the case, you should probably tune down your difficulty, but you can have a bad race every now and then and still feel like you're moving forward in the campaign and have the game still acknowledge all of the other podium or first place finishes you got. There are rewards to be sought for getting first place or a podium finish, especially depending on the sponsors you decide to choose, which might have very specific goals for you, like first place in 10 races. But that's another way in which you can sort of tune things for your specific playstyle. You can go with a sponsor that has less extreme requirements. Maybe they only want you to get first place in 5 races. You can go with them and then sort of grow and choose new sponsorships as you improve as a player and as a driver in the campaign experience. Does that all sound good to you? Because it is. There's also a photo mode in the game. That's a big plus for me. Got to throw that in there real quick. And beyond the campaign, beyond the ability to play in 4-player split screen in the career, as well as just, straight up in multiplayer, you've got all of the party modes that people have come to love and know from the Dirt 5 series over the year, including King and Transporter. Those are a ton of fun. If you've never played stuff like that, getting friends together, it is just straight shenanigans. It is a really good time. There's also a brand new thing called Playgrounds, all right? So Playgrounds are essentially create your own tracks. They're more so like racing arenas. They're not going to be filled with dirt or snow or terrain for the matter. You do get like water puddles you can put in there, but it's more about creating this very almost Trackmania style experience. It's early days right now, but I played a few tracks that I actually thought were really fun. It's definitely a more challenging experience depending on how the tracks are built. But I think there's a huge opportunity here for people to make some really cool stuff. This is one of those things I want to check back in on in a few weeks after launch to see what people are building. But I think it's just an opportunity to create basically Dirt 5's take on Trackmania. That's really what it reminds me of. I mean, you can create tracks that are like, just suspended in the sky, that have crazy tunnels and stuff in them with big jumps, and I think people are going to go wild with it. I hope people go wild with it. I hope there's a community that builds up behind it that just makes some insane tracks for people to share and to race on. I can only imagine the multiplayer shenanigans that could happen on those tracks, and I really looking forward to the potential of Playgrounds and its future. So we'll definitely revisit that down the line. Now, the last thing I really want to talk about is the game's narrative.
You know what I hate?
What, James?
You know what really grinds my gears?
Tell me, man.
People who cut in line.
No cuts, no butts, no peanut butter haircuts.
Exactly. Just wait in line like the rest of us. Now that I have that off my chest, you've got a related throwdown. You need to hop in this big old trophy truck and block anyone that tries to jump in front.
No cutsies.
It does actually have this sort of narrative-driven career, right? You're going to get voice acting from Troy Breaker and Nolan North. They play 2 fictional characters in the Dirt universe, which they've wrote an entire mythos for the Dirt series, by the way. There's even talks of a Dirt Moto series, which makes me want Codemasters to do a dirt bike racing game so badly because we just don't have a lot of really good ones. And can you imagine one with like Baja Racing and all of the crazy racing events that we get in a dirt game? Codemasters, please get the funding for that. Make it happen. I already love you. I would love you more. But beyond that, it's really just this like real world meets fictional world mishmashing. So you've got James Pumphrey and Nolan from Donut Media. If you've never watched Donut Media, they're just fun, goofy folks. The thing I like about Donut is that they're not gatekeepy douchebags in motorsport, which is honestly a big thing. I think in the world of cars and car modification and, you know, mechanics work, and there's so many outlets that are just filled with gatekeeping nonsense. And Donut has never been that. It's not that. It's cheesy at times. Their jokes are often very long-winded, especially the ones you're going to get here in Dirt 5, but I kind of don't care. It makes me smile. They even bring in some YouTube personalities like Slap Train's in there, and he kind of exists as a fictional real-world character on this podcast where they talk about fictional things, like fictional characters that you're going to go up against as your character in Dirt 5's career. It's a weird thing, but in my opinion, it actually kind of works, and it's just fun. It's just silly. You can skip it if you don't like it, but it's there. And I caught myself honestly listening through entire sections of the podcast between loading screens more times than I ever expected to. Like, just Pumphrey and Nolan are just having a good time. Just doing what they do. Making corny-ass, cheesy-ass jokes. And I honestly, I love it. It just makes me smile. It's dumb, it's silly, but it also feels heartfelt. And again, I just think props to the dudes over at Donut, because everything they've ever done on YouTube in the world of cars and automobiles has been, I think, positively delivered, consciously delivered, and not gatekeepy at all. So, yeah. That about wraps up my thoughts on Dirt 5. It played really well. I played the game over on PC with a controller. Performance is kind of all over the place, but there are better videos if you really want to know what the game's performance is like. I know Digital Foundry did a full breakdown of the game on all the consoles. Just a big shout out to Codemasters on this one, because not only do I think they finally sort of found that arcade formula again that Dirt has been kind of struggling to get a grip with the last several entries. I didn't really enjoy a lot of the mainline Dirt games. Rally's fantastic, but that's a whole different beast. It's a very sim-focused rally experience. But the actual arcade entries, I think, have been very hit and miss. This feels like them almost going all the way back to their Toka Race Driver roots and finally finding that sweet spot. They also developed this game across a huge amount of platforms, though. We're talking, you know, old consoles, the new upcoming consoles with all of their different modes. This game has a 120 FPS mode on the Xbox Series X you can check out if you end up picking up one of those consoles. And, of course, all of the PC stuff they've got to work through. So I think the team, all in all, did a great job. The small complaints I have just are completely overblown by all the stuff that matters, all the stuff that exists within the actual gameplay presentation that is Dirt 5. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're looking for a great arcade racer that you can play online, single player, at home with the folks you're living with, I cannot recommend this game enough. It is out tomorrow on just about every platform under the sun. Take a look, check it out for yourself. Huge shout out to everybody over on Patreon who continues to support the work I do here on the channel. Thank you all so much. If you'd like to become a patron yourself, the link is down in the description or the pinned comment below. Starting at just $1, you're going to get access to our private Discord server, one early access ad-free video every single month from me, as well as sort of behind-the-scenes discussion over on Patreon, where I'm always updating folks about what's going on with the channel, the content I'm working on. Basically get to see behind-the-scenes stuff that no one else gets to see. Take care of yourselves out there, folks. Be awesome to one another, and I will see you all in the next one.